Hi, I'm Jennifer, and welcome to the Krewe Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture. Welcome back to our podcast. When planning your travels to Japan, there is a lot to consider when thinking about where to go and what to do. Many people think about which temples and shrines to visit, but have you ever considered visiting a Japanese theme park? In this episode, we'll discuss the worth of visiting Japanese theme parks. There are many theme park attractions within Japan, but the two major and most notable theme parks are Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, and Universal Studios Japan. The Japanese love these two theme parks for the fantastic theming and noticeable characters. Later in this episode, we'll be joined by Chris from the blog and YouTube channel TDR Explorer. Now, let's talk about these fantastic theme parks and the magic they provide visitors. All right, so I'm here with Nigel and Doug.
Hey.
How's it going?
So when I came up with this topic, I don't think it was like hooray received. Like y'all were like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. We could talk about Japanese theme parks, but y'all weren't like as excited as I was. And I'm hoping by the end of this episode, I can change your mind about this.
I think for me, mainly that was because I just hadn't really been to, many theme parks inside of Japan. So I was more so like, are theme parks even like a thing? Like, is that a big thing in Japan?
It is.
Yeah, I think it is. And I've initially, when I think of it, the first one that comes to mind is Tokyo Disney.
Yeah, same.
Which we're going to talk about obviously in our interview later on. But there's a lot of other theme parks that when I took a second and thought back to my like study abroad years and when I was on Jet, that I actually went to stuff and I just didn't click. It didn't click in my mind as a theme park. Because I think, certain things when I think of a theme park, mostly Disney. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think theme park. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of them out there. They may be not as big as I know, well known internationally as some of the ones that we're going to discuss. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a big thing in Japan.
Yeah, so let's start off with, which theme parks or attraction parks have we been to? And I'll start it off just because mine are pretty basic. I've been to Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea twice. I went back in, I think I went back in 2014, and then I went again in 2000. Oh wait, no, I went in 2016, and then I went again in 2019, and then I only went to Universal Studios Japan in 2016. But yeah, so I've been to the two major theme parks that Japan is probably the most known for from outside of Japan.
Okay, and so you didn't go when you initially studied abroad in Japan?
No.
You went years later?
Yeah. My study abroad portion, I literally just did the dates of the program and then left. So there was like no time to do really anything. And that was my first Japan trip, so I didn't really feel comfortable traveling.
I got
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like a travel noob. That was my first time out the country. So I was like, I am just going to stick with the group.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, no. My first time was very, very basic visit to Japan. My second time for my honeymoon was a little bit more adventurous. And then I just got more adventurous after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a good experience. I liked both. I didn't find it as crowded as like the parks in like Florida, to give like a comparison, because I go to those fairly often. So the crowds weren't a bad thing for me. Even though Tokyo Disneyland is supposed to be a physical copy of the one in California and like some of Disney World. I find it was a very different experience though, because like, for example, I went on the Star Tours ride in Tokyo Disneyland, which is the Star Wars attraction where like you're seated and you're supposed to be like doing a tour of like the Star Wars worlds or whatever.
Yeah.
And in that attraction, there is a story. There is a stowaway on your tour. And, you know, they pick randomly out of the audience in like the little capsule that you're in. And in Japan, I was picked as the stowaway. And they put your face on the monitor camera in the front. So you have all the Japanese people staring at me now.
Yeah.
The foreigner stowaway.
Exactly.
You're about to get deported.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was such a unique experience.
Immigration's on their way.
Very unique experience, and I really, really enjoyed it. Because usually, I don't usually enjoy that ride normally back home. So, but in Japan, it was just like such a fun, interesting thing to have done to me. So it was really interesting. I loved it.
And is that ride unfolding in Japanese?
Yeah, everything's in Japanese.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that was like that was a fun part too, because like my husband, he loves everything in Japanese because he loves for me to just like struggle as I practice my listening skills.
Oh, that's brutal.
So he's like, "What is that like android saying?" I'm like, "I don't know. Shut up." Like,
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm trying to have fun. I'm not trying to study right now.
So if you had to choose between Tokyo Disney, Disney Sea, and Universal Studios Japan, which one was your favorite?
I would probably have to go with Tokyo Disney Sea.
It really took you that long to say that? Because I feel like you've told me many times that Tokyo Disney Sea is your absolute favorite.
Well, because I had to kind of think about it, because like I wish the Universal Studios Japan had more like anime stuff involved.
Okay.
All the anime stuff is kind of like seasonal, I guess. So like when I went, there was a Monster Hunter portion, and you know, you went in the portion and there was a huge dragon monster that was breathing fire, and then you could get like the heal potions as a drink, and then there was like a video game exhibit where you got to go in and like try one of the like arena style fights for the new game, and that was fun. My husband and I did that because he's a huge Monster Hunter fan, and then I became a huge Monster Hunter fan. But like you've probably heard on like Japanese news, you know, there have been Sailor Moon exhibits, there have been Attack on Titan exhibits, but they never stay. None of them stay. So that's like the only fault I find, because like other than that, it's almost exactly like the one in Florida, honestly, because like Florida probably even has a bigger, you know, Harry Potter world, and it definitely has a bigger Jurassic Park world now, because Jurassic Park in Florida got a new update. So it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't do anything. And Tokyo Disney Sea is my favorite because it has more thrill rides. So like they have their version of Tower of Terror.
Okay.
Which is awesome and the best Tower of Terror you will ever experience in your life. Because the story is totally different.
Oh, okay.
It's not the same story. So like instead of like Twilight Zone and bolt of lightning strikes the elevator and they die or whatever, they go into a different dimension. This is the rich artifact guy. He brings a artifact home that he shouldn't have brought in, and it's cursed, and the little artifact evil thing puts a curse on the guy and his elevator, and so he dies. And so now every time you go on the elevator, the little, it kind of looks like, I don't know what it looks like. It's like a little, I don't know, maybe like a little tiki guy. I don't know. He's really weird, scary looking. Piece of nightmares, honestly. But
Interesting.
It's a really fun ride, and that was something that like was really surprising for me, because I was like, oh, I know Tower of Terror, but it's like, no, I don't know this Tower of Terror. Completely different.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they have like rides that we're just not used to. So like I don't know if y'all ever heard of like these old Disney movies, but like
hmm
I think it's like 500 Leagues Under the Sea or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they have a ride for that, which is like really random, but you know, I really appreciate it because it's a really fun ride. But yeah, they have a bunch of rides like that. So it's just a really unique experience.
One day I'll go.
You should
Yeah, same.
do it. Nigel, what theme parks have you been to?
So I've actually only been to one, which is again why I was like, are theme parks really like a thing? Because I just didn't have much experience with them. But the one that I went to was in Kyoto. It was on the study abroad program that I went on, and the park was called Egamura, which I've also seen as the Toei Kyoto Studio theme park. And what it is it's, as Egamura translates to, it's movie land. So it is a theme park that is basically a functioning, operating movie set.
Oh, cool.
Where, yeah, the Toei studio. Toei is one of the giants of filmmaking in Japan.
hmm
One of the classic, iconic filmmakers. If you've watched any classic Japanese movies, you've likely seen Toei, or even if you watch anime, you might also be familiar with it.
It's that classic intro where it's like waves crashing. It's like a triangle, I think, and it has the characters in the middle.
Yeah.
Or it's like some kind of like scenic thing in the background. Maybe it's not always that, but their logo is a triangle with like their characters kind of in the middle. I know I've seen a bunch of their stuff.
And you've probably seen it on Ultraman, huh? Is that my
Yeah,
guess?
Ultraman.
Yeah.
What was it? Ultraman, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai. Yeah, my son's really big into all that stuff. So
Exactly.
I've seen that logo on episodes all the time.
Yeah. So like the park itself, the park had like two kind of main areas. It was like the first one was like an indoor museum to the history of Toei. And in that museum you can see all of like the classic films that they, participated in making. You got to see all the like giants of like monsters and superheroes. So you have the Ultraman section, you have all these costumes and props and things like that. You also have an anime section, really cool like old film equipment if you're like a film buff and you like that stuff. But then that's like the inside. It's really cool, really cool museum. But the outside is actually, the outside of the park is like a recreation of like ancient Japan. So you feel like you've been dropped into like the past. You're walking through the streets and there's people in like period piece costumes and people like operating shops and things like that. You'll see samurai walking around, things like that. And it's not just like it's not just for show. They are actually recording films while you are there.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really crazy. When I went, we actually got to see that happen. They were working on a film right in front of us. And so the Toei still uses that set mainly for Jidaigeki movies, and that's basically the term that refers to these period piece movies. So it's a really cool theme park. For me, it was like a must see. Again, I majored in film in undergrad, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is in the same city. I got to go to it. But that's actually the only theme park I've been to. So I don't have much experience, with theme parks beyond that. While I was in Japan, the group of students that I was with, they took one weekend and they went to Tokyo and Disney Sea. I chose to go to Osaka and go to a professional soccer game. So I guess, shame on me, but
You picked your poison. It's okay.
yeah, in the end of the day, I was really satisfied with that choice. So
Sure.
I'm a huge soccer fan, and it was a really big game. It turned out to be like a classic match. So I'm
It's
I'm
perfect
okay
then.
with that decision.
Yeah, well, it's like Disneyland will always be there. Well, theoretically, but that soccer game
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like the
Yeah.
going away match for like one of their like
Yeah.
best players
Oh, cool.
before he moved to like a European team. So it was really cool to see that.
Cool. Yeah, no, and you mentioned the Eigamura, and I remember looking into that last summer when we were planning our inevitable next trip to Japan, whenever the hell that is. Um, the, I think they had like a museum or like areas for like those things of like anime or tokusatsu, like your Kamen Riders or your Super Sentai type shows. So like if that's what you're interested in,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only theme parks or places like this in Japan where you can kind of go and see like the museum where they have like kind of like features on different pieces of those characters' histories and you know, just about them in general, and like shops and exclusive material and whatnot. So if that's kind of tickles your fancy, it's another option for you to go to. I'd like to go there one day, but yeah, just got to get down there.
And it's worth a visit going now because, you know, part of my job for the study abroad program, I try to find interesting facts about Japan and Kyoto specifically to try and get students to really get excited to want to go. And that theme park in particular had an update in, I think, late 2019. They actually have an Eva from Evangelion that you can go in.
What?
Oh, you can actually go inside of it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
what I've read. I've read that you can physically go into it and like take a
Can you
picture.
zip line into it?
No, you can't zip line into it, but it's still pretty cool for Evangelion fans.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that and got to, you know, do
That's
that.
pretty cool.
Well, now you got to go back.
True. Once those borders reopen, I'll be there the next day.
Because I know I want to go. I want to go see that. Even though I'm not like the biggest Evangelion fan, I still want to go see it because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the park itself was really fascinating. I think even if you aren't like a film buff, because it was just really cool to kind of, you know, just kind of be dropped right in the middle of, you know, ancient Japan, you know.
Especially me who loves like period dramas. Hell
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like, it you know, it's not as, you know, like, I guess, elaborate as like a, you know, a Disney Sea or Tokyo Disney, but they do a really good job at trying to recreate it.
Yeah,
and there are like shows and things you can like sit in a theater and watch them do like live theater shows and things like that. So
yeah.
Especially if you want to buy props, great place to buy, you know, all sorts of like props that you can bring back home to people. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I recommend that one. That's the only one I've been to. So what about you, Doug?
It's a good experience. Yeah, Doug, where have you been?
So I've been to Tokyo Disneyland, so I'm not really going to talk too much about that because we're going to hit on that a lot. But I thought about it, and there's two other ones. One I'm going to talk to you first is probably the last theme park I've been to, and it's Tokyo Dome City, Lakwa. It's kind of like a theme park, amusement park. They got a lot of stuff there. It's one most famous, known for their massive roller coaster. I can't remember the name, but there's like a sky coaster, and it kind of goes around, not around the Tokyo Dome, but kind of like right outside of it. So you're in this huge amusement park right next to Tokyo Dome, and you can see, you know, kind of get an aerial view of everything around there. They have a lot of restaurants and shops, but one other cool thing that they do have, in addition to that, they have like a, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the stadium, or not the stadium, but the theater. Jirosu, I think is what it's called. And they do a lot of live events there. Specifically, and I know this because I went with my son and my wife and my sister-in-law, like Power Rangers, like Super Sentai, they do live performances in these like little stadiums. And in Kamen Rider too, they do a bunch of different stuff there. So you can go and watch these live shows. They have stores for like Toei, and they have a Shonen Jump store with like all the different characters from all their manga and anime. They have a lot of like smaller amusement rides. So it's a really fun place in the city center of Tokyo. I mean, if you're going to, let's say, a baseball game or some kind of event at Tokyo Dome, and you want to kill some time during the day leading up to the event in the evening, you got a whole amusement park at your disposal. So it's a really, really cool place. I didn't even know about it until like one of my friends brought me there during my study abroad year. I didn't know it's kind of crazy that this existed like literally in the middle of like skyscrapers and, you know, like right around the Tokyo Dome. So yeah, that's a really cool one. And another one is Spa Resort Hawaiians, which we're going to touch a little bit on during our interview. But just to give it some context, if you don't know by now, I did jet program, and I lived in Fukushima, in a city called Iwaki, and the area where I lived was the Yumoto onsen area, and it's, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, they have Dogo Onsen. It's like one of the biggest, most famous onsen in Japan. But there's like 3 of them. I think Arima Onsen is one other one, and then Yumoto is like the third. So where I used to live is considered one of the big 3 like onsens towns or onsens in the country.
Wow.
So for longest time in this area, it was also a very big mining community. But in the 1950s and 60s, they started to transition from coal to other means of energy like gas or oil. So like the coaling companies or the mining companies were starting to kind of like close up or start to have to lay down and kind of break apart. But and this company had like 13,000 employees. So it was a very big employer for the area. So the vice president was like desperate to find something to replace this coal. Like they read the tea leaves and they knew that what was coming, and they were looking for an alternative to do. And like they were searching for ideas, couldn't find anything. They went on these international trips to kind of investigate. And on one of the trips, they did a layover in Hawaii. And his name is Yutaka Nakamura. He was the vice president of this company, Joban Tanko, and he was enamored by Hawaii and just like hula and on Polynesian dance and things like that. He pitched it to the board, said, "Hey, we should do like a Hawaiian theme like resort or something." And they were like, "We don't know anything about running this type of thing. Like, what are you talking about? This is crazy." And then eventually he kind of won them over, and they formed like this big, I forget the name of it, but I think it's like Joban Yumoto Onsen Kanko, which is like basically like a tourism bureau for like the onsen area. And they opened in 1966 what was called Joban Hawaiian Center, which eventually in the 90s became Spa Resort Hawaiians. So it's a big Hawaiian themed water park and hot spring resort that has 3 massive water slides, indoor and outdoor pools, lazy river splash pads. But then on top of that, they have indoor and outdoor onsen, so hot baths. And they tout that they have the world's largest outdoor hot spring bath as well. And it's kind of styled in like an Edo period, like kind of fixtures and stuff. So it looks very kind of traditional and kind of your 1800s vibe.
Do you know if that claim is true? Do they actually have?
I have no idea if it's actually true or not, but I've been in there, and it is massive. It's
Oh wow,
it's really cool. Like we went the first time I went, I remember it was a kind of a cooler, rainy day, like misty rain, and so we were out in this hot bath, and like it's outdoors. You're naked, you're getting in the water, and it's segregated, so you have like men in one area, women in the other. And it's just so relaxing and peaceful. It's so nice to do that. Like, and just sit there and it's kind of like misty, cold rain on your head, but you're in this hot water.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, I just rambled.
So I think but here's the thing, like something that all of our experiences had in common was like just Japan really, really doing a great job at theming.
Yeah.
We felt immersed. We felt, really in the theme. So like Nigel, you were saying like you really feel like you're walking in that period piece. Samurai are walking around with you, and probably they're interacting with you, making it even more immersive. Definitely. Yeah. And then Doug, you have this whole experience of this kind of water theme park, and it even has like more features than you would think a water theme park would have.
Right.
So the theming is just all over the place there. And then like the 2 that I've been, obviously they have strong theming because of their history with the US theme parks, and Japan, just being Japan, steps up their game like always and just makes it a little better than the original. But yeah, so theming is a big part of Japanese theme parks, and I feel like our experiences, what little it is, we really got a taste of Japan's theming power. They're just really good at delivering those kind of things. And with that, we kind of did our own research and stuff like that. So my next question is, what theme parks do we want to visit in the future on our next Japan trips? Because I got mine. I know what I want to visit.
Well, we have an amazing interview lined up for this episode. And part of what I learned from that interview is that I really need to go to Disney Sea. So that's on.
Both of you really
do.
Yeah.
So the listener, you will figure out why. But for me, I think that's top of my list. It sounds really amazing, and I think with the things that it has in store for the future, it sounds like it's going to only get even more amazing.
Better.
Yeah. So I think Tokyo. Tokyo Disney as well, but Disney Sea probably is top of my list.
Just do one park each day. That's what I usually do. I spend a day at Tokyo Disneyland and a day at Tokyo Disney Sea, and then I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
I think we usually do like a day trip because my sister-in-law lives in Ibaraki, kind of not too far out of Tokyo. So driving there is like about a 45-minute drive. So we'll like go and do that. And I think Disney Sea is definitely next on our radar. I've had multiple opportunities to go and missed out. I think our last Disneyland trip, we were talking about which one to go to, and then we opted to go to Disneyland, just because Noah had never been, and it would be a good first experience. But yeah, Disney Sea, I'm not gonna let myself be persuaded next time. Otherwise,
yes, fellow Disney fans.
Although I do want to go to Universal. There seems like the Mario World seems really cool.
Yeah,
I want to check that out. So that's another place I'd really like to see in the future.
I need to go revisit Universal Studios. It's been a hot minute, so I should go do that too.
Yeah.
But I do have a destination in mind next time if I need to hit a theme park, and that is something that I've talked about before, which is Nijigen no Mori, which is that attraction theme park that I kind of talked about. That was like anime inspired amusement park.
Yeah.
It's the one on it's located on Awaji Island, which is technically in Hyogo Prefecture, and I put it before as Shikoku Island, but it's like in between the two. It's between mainland Japan and the Shikoku Island. So it's like really there. Okay.
I've been there before, actually.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
not to the theme park, but
okay.
A friend's friend. We stayed overnight on a road trip. I don't know. This is gonna be a complete sidetrack, but we stayed overnight and did we watched The Ring, and then the next day there was these abandoned buildings that were damaged or destroyed in the earthquake back in the 90s, the Kobe earthquake, and that people they're still they're just abandoned and just there, and you can kind of go in and kind of look around. And it's really supposedly scary. It was scary. It was pitch black, and there's curry powder on the floor that's been on the floor probably since 1990 something. Yeah, but there's an abandoned dormitory, and you get in all the rooms are not open, but unlocked, so you can walk in there. No one's policing or anything. It's just spooky. You don't know what you're gonna find when you walk into the room. So yeah, Wajishima also has crazy ass scary buildings. That's what they told us. When the girl that lived there, she's yeah, this is kind of I don't want to say attraction, but people come there to kind of go look at some of this stuff. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I want to go because
sorry.
No, just the theme park section specifically, because like I said before in a previous episode, that's where they have the Godzilla theme park where you get to zip line through Godzilla's mouth, which is hilarious. They also have a Naruto and Boruto section where, you can go eat the ramen. You can eat the ramen, Nigel.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I thought that was the place, but I'm glad you confirmed it. So that is actually probably tied with the two.
There you go.
Yeah, the two places I need to go to. You can eat the ramen.
You can take this ninja test to become a ninja and get a certificate at the end. It's great.
Oh God.
And then they recently just added a I think it's oh God, it's a Square Enix
Final
game.
Fantasy?
Is it Dragon Quest?
Oh, Dragon Quest, yeah.
Yeah, they just did a Dragon Quest section, so that's also something to look out for. So yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
that's my next thing that I want to do is go to Awaji Island and experience this theme park because it looks fascinating for
Do you
anime fans. Just saying.
just curious, like how accessible is it? Do you know, like how easy is it for it to get there? Since, like you said, it's an island that's in between Shikoku and Honshu.
It is.
I know we did by car, so I'm assuming like a bus.
There is a bus, so you could either do the car and rent a car and go, or there is a bus that you can take. It is in Hyogo Prefecture, so the bus would be from like mainland Hyogo Prefecture, and then you go to the island. It's on the website for the theme park specifically, and it must be super easy or easy-ish because one of my students in 2019 went. And I was highly impressed that he got there. So
Cool.
yeah. So it must be easier than I expect if one of my students went. So yeah, that's my next to go to. But with that being said, there are theme parks planned for the future in Japan that, Nigel was kind of hinting at one of them. But first of them, which we kind of discussed in the interview briefly as a surprise, so now I don't have y'all's initial reaction, but there's going to be a Studio Ghibli theme park in Japan very soon, fall of 2022, so next year. And this theme park is going to feature a lot of everyone's favorite movies. All three of ours is on it. So you're going to have Howl's Moving Castle. Woo woo! My favorite.
Nigel's is Totoro, right?
Yeah, you know it.
But there's going to be Whisper of the Heart, Spirited Away. So Nigel, there you go. My Neighbor Totoro, which is everyone's demon. And then Doug, yours, Princess Mononoke is going to go on there.
Yay.
And then I know Maddie is not in our Studio Ghibli episode, but Kiki's Delivery Service for Maddie will be at this park.
Do you know if it's an indoor thing or is it like an outdoor?
It's going to be an outdoor thing.
Wow. Okay. So I'm imagining with Spirited Away, it's like the actual like.
We don't know the details yet.
Really? Okay.
Don't know too many details. Wow. This is as much of the details as we know. So.
And it's opening next year?
Yes, next year.
Oh, wow. So everything's under wraps.
Imagine if they did that train ride where it's like just across the water and there's nothing around.
It could be that.
Oh my God, that'd be so pretty.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Studio Ghibli theme park is going to be somewhere in Nagoya Prefecture.
Oh, cool. Wow. It's kind of like right smack dab in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's going to be a very Instagrammable park.
Oh, definitely.
Has to be.
Definitely.
Depends if Instagram is okay with pictures still.
True. Well, it'll still be with video. So.
Video.
TikToking.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see. Well, that goes on my list too.
Yeah, for the future. But another one, which is kind of, surprising, I guess, and odd at the same time, because they do have a Harry Potter world in Universal Studios Japan, but in 2023, in the Tokyo area, there's going to be something called a Warner Brothers Studio Tour, and it's going to be Harry Potter theme. And we don't know too much about this, but what they're saying is that it's going to be a tour of the movie sets from Harry Potter. So I don't know, if there's going to be, any other kind of theming, interactions, but that's kind of what they're going for so far. And I guess we'll hear more as the time gets closer.
So is it going to be, temporary? Or is it, kind of like a...
No,
it's permanent?
It sounds like it's going to be a permanent thing.
Okay.
Wow.
And I didn't realize Harry Potter was such a thing in Japan.
Yeah, that's something I realized in 2016. When I went, it was it was a huge thing, and I was kind of blown away by that. But yeah, no, it's pretty big in Japan.
Yeah,
and then something else that is coming up, which isn't really a new theme park, but it's upcoming additions, which Nigel hinted at, and then we'll talk briefly about in our interview that I'll talk about in a bit. But Tokyo Disney Sea just recently announced some new additions that they'll be having. In 2023, they're going to have something called Fantasy Springs, and this is going to encompass titles such as Frozen, Tangled, and Peter Pan, which will be very unique to Tokyo Disney Sea. I don't believe any other Disney park has these kind of lands, and especially for Tangled, because Tangled does not get as much love as it probably should. So fans of these three, characters and worlds will be very, very happy with this addition to Tokyo Disney Sea. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I think what's really cool about those is I don't, except for Frozen, I kind of don't really see how those fit into like a sea theme. And I know it doesn't have to be sea themed to be a Disney Sea, but I'm just curious to see how that works out.
Yeah, don't take Disney Sea so literal in that sense. It doesn't have to do with it being sea themed. Tokyo Disney Sea is called Sea because it's literally on Tokyo Bay. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I remember when Tokyo Disney Sea was actually having a new attraction back in 2016. They were building some kind of Nemo ride, which great Nemo ride. It was awesome. And you could actually see Tokyo Bay in the background because the construction wasn't like too high up yet, and they didn't have walls there yet, so you could see that there was the Tokyo Bay just right behind the attraction. So that's what they mean by Disney Sea. It doesn't literally mean everything in that park encompasses like sea, because that would make no sense since they have an Arabian section for like Aladdin and stuff. So
Cool.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh man, I can't wait to go.
Same.
Yeah, I'm even excited to go to Tokyo Disneyland again, because actually in the past year, I think 2020, they had a new addition to Tokyo Disneyland, which is the Beauty and the Beast section. So they have the Beauty and the Beast castle, and you can go into the castle and there's an attraction in the castle, like a ride. And then in the surrounding area, you have like Belle's bookshop that she always went to, and the fountain that she was reading the book at. So it's very immersive, and I want to go see that too. So just some new things that are happening theme parks in Japan that we need to look forward to.
Not bad.
But that brings me to our segue into our interview. We actually had the pleasure of interviewing Chris from TDR Explorer. The guys had no idea who this was, but I'm a huge Disney fan, especially when it comes to the different theme parks, and Tokyo being one of them. And Chris specializes in, a lot of the main theme parks in Japan, being Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, and Universal Studios Japan. And I knew that he was the perfect guest for us to talk about Japanese theme parks. So we talked a little bit about, theme parks in general, and then really, really went into a history and kind of detailed description of Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea and Universal Studios. So I think Chris even has 2 new fans now. Y'all have been bragging that y'all trying to catch up on all of his videos now.
Yeah. I was really impressed with just, his command of, knowledge on the subject.
Yeah, and he did a really good job of kind of explaining some of the things that you may need to consider when traveling to Tokyo Disney and other theme parks in Japan. So it definitely was insightful for me, things that I hadn't really thought about. So I hope all of you listeners enjoy.
All right, so to start off this interview, we are here today with Chris from TDR Explorer. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you here talking about Japanese theme parks with us. Chris, would you like to just kind of introduce yourself to our listeners to let them know like who you are?
Sure. My name is Chris, aka TDR Explorer, and if you've watched my YouTube videos, you know that's how I open them up. And I'm a person that talks about theme parks here in Japan, specifically the Disney parks and also Universal Studios, and just kind of helping people plan their trips when travel happens. And it's been something we've been doing for, oh goodness, I think going on 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
So we've been doing
That's
this
great.
for quite a while, and yeah, I enjoy it a lot.
Awesome. Well, that's super like thrilling. I part of traveling obviously is doing sightseeing, but I think a big part of it, and there's a big subset of travelers that do theme park traveling, destination traveling, and so one topic actually, and you'll see where I'm tying into this here. One topic that we do before we jump into our main part of our interview is we ask our guests if they have any connection to New Orleans, whether it's they've been before or if they have, if they have, what is your fondest or funniest or most unique memory? And if you haven't, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the words New Orleans?
So I've never been before, and I have friends that do live there, and I do eventually want to make it to New Orleans. I haven't yet, but what first pops to my mind is The Princess and the Frog.
Okay.
Knew it.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of New Orleans, because I love that movie a lot. And yeah, like as soon as I saw this question, that's the first thing that popped into my mind. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, one of our other guests said that was her first impression of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Who was thinking of the Princess and the Frog movie from Disney. Yeah.
And I remember when she said that, she said the first thing I think of is Disney, and we were all like, what? Like, wait, what's the connection? And then she said, oh, Princess and the Frog, and we were like, oh, that's right. So that's really awesome. I feel like a lot of people who maybe like especially international audiences, that was a good first introduction to New Orleans for a lot of people, especially in the younger generation.
And one thing I was going to ask you is, did you know that New Orleans had a theme park? We don't anymore, but we had one, and it was under two separate names, because it got rebranded at one point. But do you know what they are, or what it was? One of them, both of them?
I have no idea.
No, okay. Originally, it was called Jazzland Theme Park. It's about 20 or 30 minutes outside of the city center. And then it was, I don't know if it was purchased or bought out or rebranded, whatever, to Six Flags. It was Six Flags New Orleans. And then eventually, after Hurricane Katrina, kind of shut down. But they use it now they filmed, I want to say it was Jurassic World.
Yeah.
There, they do some kind of like theme park setting, like abandoned theme park setting, or they just repurpose what they had. So yeah, it's a little theme park trivia related to New Orleans for you.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't know that, so I learned something new today.
There you go.
Yeah, Doug really wanted to make sure you knew that we had a theme park here.
Oh, I loved Jazzland in high school. It was one of my favorite places to go.
Well, to get back onto the subject of Japan, Chris, what is your Japan journey? Like, what led you to having an interest in Japan and eventually living there now? Give us your story.
So I think like a lot of people from like Canada and the US and other Western countries, my introduction to Japan was through like anime and cartoons. So growing up, for me, it was Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Pokemon. That was kind of my introduction to that, because I remember growing up noticing that these cartoons are different from like, the normal Disney cartoons and Ninja Turtles and all that. So I always found that very interesting. And it wasn't until I was in high school when I was always friends with the Japanese exchange students that were always in my homeroom. And so I just found it very interesting, like, oh, there's people here from another country. Why would you want to come to the middle of Canada? There's nothing here. And eventually that led me to my homeroom teacher said to me one day, do you want to study in Japan? And at that point, I never thought of, like, it never occurred to me that was even a possibility. And I said, sure, why not? So I went and did a study abroad in Japan for 6 months. And this was in 2003. So it was almost 20 years ago now. And I, obviously I ended up enjoying it. And I went back to Canada. And then eventually I did make my way back here. I came to Japan on a working holiday visa, because I know some countries have that with Japan. Canada's one of them. I don't think the US has that agreement.
I don't think so. I wish they
No,
did.
we don't
I
have
wish
that.
they did.
So that's how I came back to Japan in 2013. And my plan was to just stick around for the year and, maybe travel around and maybe just do like little odd jobs here and there just to help pay for things. I ended up finding a job as a software developer with a small company. So I ended up staying and they sponsored my work visa. And then I started doing this whole stuff with theme parks because I enjoyed theme parks. So I thought, well, there's Tokyo Disney here. It's only an hour from where I was living before. And I thought, well, why don't I just start writing about it? Because I was kind of doing some writing on a blog before. And I was just writing about my experience, like, oh, today I went to the park and this was happening, or I had this food today. And eventually I saw more and more people were reading what I was writing. Like I had no strategy, I had no nothing with that. I was just putting stuff out there. And then eventually it turned into this big thing where everybody wanted to know about Tokyo Disneyland, Universal Studios, especially with tourism was picking up in Japan. And then eventually I made the leap to make this my career. And here we are, 7-8 years later, still doing it.
And you're doing a fine job.
Yeah, it's so cool hearing the evolution of like you just do something out as a hobby. Like I hear so many people start off, I'm just having a blog to practice studying my Japanese, or just documenting my travels, and it turns into something that is like, it's something you love. It's a passion, but also something you're able to turn into a career. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. A lot of hard work, but it's work that I enjoy doing. So
that's I second or third that. That's truly amazing. Actually, making your dream a reality. In a hobby, your full-time job. I think a lot of people would be envious of that for sure. So that brings me to the next question we have, which is, I think for a lot of people, some theme parks stand out more than others. For example, Tokyo Disney, Universal Studios. But I don't think, many people have a comprehensive list of what's actually, there. What are some theme parks that they can visit outside of those two? So can you discuss some of the theme parks that are available in Japan that people can actually visit?
Yeah, so there's quite a few throughout the country, and some of them I guess would be classified as an amusement park, less than a theme park. I guess like Disney and Universal, those are like the theme parks, right? And these other places, people like I would classify them more amusement parks. Places like Fuji-Q Highland, I guess that could be a theme park. It's kind of themed. That's the one of the more popular roller coaster parks. So if you're into roller coasters, there's a good chance you know about it. A lot of people don't think of that place. It's out near Mount Fuji. It has a gorgeous view of Mount Fuji. Like one of the roller coasters, when you go to the top, if you look to the right, there's Mount Fuji, and then you drop. So that's a place that is pretty popular locally. Like a lot of people know about it. Another place is Nagashima Spa Land is another roller coaster park, and that's near Nagoya, that's between Kyoto and Tokyo. That's another popular place. And then there's I can never say the name right of this place. It's a Dutch theme park down in Nagasaki, the Hostenbosch. I can never say it, but it's this gigantic theme park that looks like a Dutch town. It's really odd. I've never been yet. It's still on my list to get down there. But yeah, those are just some of the other theme parks and amusement parks that are here. And then of course we have all these like little smaller ones that are kind of scattered about. Like there's Sanrio Puro Land, with basically Hello Kitty World, if you want to call it that. And then there's also in Tokyo, there's this place called Yomuri Land, and it's mostly there's a roller coaster and other rides like that. And they sometimes do these collaborations with big brands. Like they just did one with Pokemon this summer, which I didn't get to do it, but they had this because they have like a forest, and you have to do like this scavenger hunt to find Pokemon in the forest. So there's a lot of variety here. It's not just Disney, although Disney is one of the the biggest player here, and Universal.
Wow. I wasn't aware of any of the ones you just mentioned except for Sanrio. I knew that one, but the rest of them all new to me. So for our listeners, if all of those were new to them and they only had, let's say, one day or time just to go to one park, which one would you recommend and why?
Like out of the Disney, like including the Disney parks, or
Yeah, why not?
okay. Well, if we want to include the Disney parks, then definitely Disney Sea. Mainly that's the most unique one. Like it's the only version of that park in the world. Whereas Tokyo Disneyland is kind of a mishmash of like the Magic Kingdom from Walt Disney World and the original Disneyland in California. So it's very familiar. But Tokyo Disney Sea is completely unique, and I think it's something everyone should experience at least once in their lifetime, even though I'm a little biased, but
Well, being biased, that gives, I'm adding a question to that is, for someone who may not be a Disney fan, do you think you could still recommend it to someone like that?
I would recommend Disney Sea, even if you're not a Disney fan, because it's not so blatantly Disney.
Okay.
Like when you go to Disneyland, that's Disney. Like you go there, you see the princesses, you see Alice in Wonderland, you see Winnie the Pooh and all that. But when you go to Disney Sea, while those characters do kind of exist in the park, like there's Toy Story and stuff, but the architecture of the park and just the theming alone just makes it worth going to. It's like when you go there, it's hard to believe that you're in Japan. Like you are transported to all these different places. Like you'll be in Venice at one point, and then the next you'll be in the US, or you'll be in Cape Cod. Walk down a little bit further, you're going to be in Mysterious Island, which is like a steampunk-esque kind of land. So there's a lot that the park has to offer, and it's not just for Disney fans. Even though if you are a Disney fan, that's a plus.
I had a quick question, and not to deviate from our questions here, but kind of to piggyback off the number 4 and what Nigel had asked. I'm just curious. I didn't even think about this place until you were going through some of your examples of like other parks in the country. I'm just curious. Have you ever been to Spa Resort Hawaiians in Fukushima?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. It was like 5 minutes from where I used to live, so that's why I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of it as a theme park. It's kind of a water park resort with like onsen and outdoor onsen and indoor, but also has a big pool and slides and they do like hula dances and stuff. It's a Hawaii theme resort. Yeah, I didn't even think about it until like you were starting to talk. I'm like, you know what? Now that
that's hilarious.
Yeah, there you go. That's one to add to your list of places to check out at some point.
Yes, I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So back to our actually planned questions. I think a lot of listeners or just people in general are familiar with the 1990s economic bubble in Japan and how like their economy was soaring, and then suddenly, just due to plenty of different factors, burst. And one of those things that kind of flourished during the time of the bubble, where theme parks started to pop up all over the country. Do you have any insight of like that whole kind of like period? Just I'm not talking about like details, super detail or anything, but like high level, like the impact of that economic bubble and its burst on the theme park quote unquote culture in Japan.
So yeah, I did a little digging on this. I had to do a little bit of research. I think so like Disney's very popular in Japan, right? And going back into the 1960s when this theme park called Nadaland opened up, which is now demolished. It was a cheap replica of the original Disneyland, and that was very popular for a very long time. And then Disney came along and built an official park, right? Because Nadaland was kind of like the knockoff. And then in the 80s, that's when Tokyo Disneyland opened. It opened in 1983, and then that just kind of made this shift with the theme parks, going from these little places that are kind of like what the place you were just talking about, where there's onsen and there's like little parks and stuff like that, going from that into these more like highly themed areas that we've seen in the US for much longer. And that kind of continued on throughout the bubble era. And then I think I couldn't find solid information on this, but Tokyo Disney Sea and Universal Studios Japan didn't open. They both opened in 2001, so that's well after the bubble burst. But theme parks don't pop up overnight. There's a ton of planning. Like, these can take decades to plan and build. So a lot of these plans are already were being the money and stuff was, I'm pretty sure, was being invested during the bubble era, and then it just took that long for these other theme parks to be finished. So I think that was kind of the the byproduct of all this money flying around Japan at that time. And since then, the Disney and Universal have been the big hitters, and for better or for worse, because some places have shut down, of course, because everyone wants to go to Disneyland. Everyone wants to go to Super Nintendo World now. People aren't really wanting to go to these little smaller, lesser known places as much anymore, unfortunately. And some of them are great to visit. They're nice little vacations.
Cool. Yeah, I've been through towns and see kind of derelict theme parks, or some things with little roller coasters and rides that just are covered in weeds or vines and stuff, just haven't been used in years or decades even. So I was kind of curious, because I know that that was one of those byproducts of the bubble burst, that all these people were throwing money into those theme parks, and then they just couldn't, I guess, the maintenance of it, the upkeep and everything of just keeping it active and running, just after the economy tanked for a little bit, couldn't maintain it. So I was just curious if you had some more information about that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess to talk about our next topic is, in your opinion, because Japan seems to have scattered across its country a good amount of theme parks, what do you feel makes Japanese theme parks stand out from other places around the world?
Oh goodness, we can go on about this forever.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I had to think about this one pretty for a little bit. I think probably the biggest thing is the whole customer service aspect in Japan. The whole what's the word? Omotenashi,
Mm-hmm.
that Japanese word of customer service and all that. I think that has a lot to do with it, where the customer service is really high. So they want to make sure that your experience at these parks is worth your money, and to pay to get into these places, they're still relatively cheap compared to if you go to Disney World, you're paying $200-300 to go in. But here in Japan, a day at Tokyo Disneyland is $80. So it's cheaper in some aspects if you want to compare it to the other parks around the world. But the customer service and the level of detail with everything, everything is just so intricate. And this isn't just unique to Japan or to the theme parks. It's kind of Japan as a whole. Culturally, things are just they love to put detail and a lot of effort into things, and you do see that in the theme parks, especially with the food and the merchandise. Everything is just so intricate and detailed, and there's a lot of care and thought put into these, and it shows. Especially when you start going to other places around the world, you're like, oh, okay, well, this doesn't really look like Mickey Mouse, but okay, you're telling me it is. But then if you come to Japan, you see something that's Mickey Mouse shaped or whatever, it'll be super intricate. You can see his face in the food and all this kind of stuff. So I think it just really boils down to just the level of detail, and people really enjoy that. And they also know their market. So most people that visit the theme parks here in Japan are locals. So marketing wise, they know how to hit the mark very easily. So they're able to market to people here very very succinctly on just how it works here, I guess.
Yeah, because you actually said a lot of things that I agree with, and that's kind of why I kind of gave this question to you, because my opinion, I don't know if it's like top tier opinion. So I was like, maybe I want to see what Chris thinks and see if we agree on any points. And one of the things that I really thought about was the theming, because like when I went into Tokyo Disney Sea, the theming in that park, oh my gosh, especially like the Little Mermaid area. Wow, like so picturesque, like that's just Instagrammable right there. And then I saw your video on the Super Mario World at Universal Studios Japan, and wow, like that. I mean, when I can go to Japan next time, I hope to see it for myself, but just from your video, you know, I was like, wow, this is like so impressive. Like deep immersion, like you can't even tell that you're elsewhere. Like you literally feel like, I would imagine you're in the Mario world.
Yeah, it's very impressive with how they do all this stuff, and also like maintenance as well. They take maintenance very seriously here, so if something's not working, they will shut the whole thing down and they'll make sure that it gets fixed. Again, it kind of comes down to presentation, right? Like presentation's a big thing in Japan, like especially, you know, with food and like, you know, the tea ceremony culture and all that. Like it's also, there's just a very specific way you do things. It's very intricate, and I feel that translates into the theme parks as well. They just want to have it a very specific way, and they do it very, very well.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I guess my next question, you know, since I did mention your video, you know, on your YouTube channel, TDR Explorer, you know, you mostly talk about Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, Universal Studios Japan. Now, occasionally you do off-brand things, like you did you tried not all, you tried a good amount of Starbucks Frappuccinos that one time.
That was a day. Let's just put it
I
that
can
way.
imagine.
That was a day.
A lot of sugar that day.
It was, yeah, it really was.
But, you know, a lot of people who are probably listening to this podcast episode right now are very familiar with, you know, the Disney theme parks in California and Florida in the US. And then, of course, the Universal Studios parks as well. What would you say would be the main differences between the two, like, you know, Japan versus the US parks of those two in particular?
That's a heavy-hitting question.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like bad differences. It could be good differences or both. You know, I'm just interested in knowing your opinion for people who may go to Japan and be like, oh, well, I like Disney World in Florida. Maybe I'll give Disneyland in Tokyo a try. You know, what would you say would be the big comparisons between the two for those parks?
So I guess the biggest thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is the Disney parks here in Japan aren't actually owned and operated by Disney. It's owned by a company called the Oriental Land Company, which is a Japanese company. So I tell people that because when you come here and visit the Disney parks in particular, things are not going to work the way you expect them to, especially if you're really used to the US parks. It's culture shock. Just like pretty much everything in Japan, there's a lot of culture shock, including the theme parks, just how things work. So I always tell people that, just to be aware, like, don't assume that everything works the exact same way as Disney World or Disneyland in California. As for some of the, I guess, biggest differences, the food quality here is quite nice and cute. I really enjoy the food. I eat it all the time. Whenever I get to the parks, like that's what a lot of my videos are on, is just me eating food. Apparently that's what it's turned into, which I'm not complaining. And what else? The food is a big thing. Merchandise is another really big thing here. That's probably the biggest thing I see, is people just really love the merchandise here. Again, it kind of goes back to they know how to market to people in Japan. So there's a very specific taste that people like here. And some of that translates to, you know, people coming from overseas. They just find it so interesting and fascinating and cute. And people just want to buy everything because it's so just well designed, I guess.
I can vouch for that. I actually bought a 101 Dalmatian like little purse that you can wear around your body, and then it's very tiny though. Like you could barely fit anything in it, but I loved it so much I bought it, and I always bring it to Disney World with me when I go in Florida for vacation. And every time, without fail, I get asked all the time, where did you buy that? And then I have to disappoint them and say I got it in Japan and Tokyo Disneyland. And their face is just defeated.
Yeah, the merchandise here, it's always changing, and they know how to do it very well. I don't know what it is. It just makes you want to buy it all, for better or for worse, I guess. I don't know.
Agreed.
I think one thing they do really well is they promote like limited edition or limited time only items, you know, like the Gente, whatever, you know, like whether it's a prefecture's like specific one or like it's only available in the fall versus the summer, you know, those things make you want to. I mean, I got this Starbucks cup. I'm holding it up. You can't see it you're listening to a podcast over here, but for us, it's like a winter Starbucks cup that is only available in the winter for like one time. And I was like, oh my God, I want it. And I don't need it. I have another one for the spring. But it was like, oh, they look so pretty though. So it like you said, it sucks you in. It traps you. It's like, take my money.
But like Chris said, you know, their audience is Japanese people mostly, you know, the locals. And, you know, I think that's something to think about when it comes to the merchandise, because, you know, those purses that I was talking about, we don't have that at regular Disney World. It's non-existent. There's no like tiny little plush purses that you could stuff anything in, and then like your Disney cards or your credit card in the card slot, because it's supposed to be like a more of a train pass thing. But that's what I use it for. But yeah, I find that there's just different merchandise just because it is so Japan focused, and that's why you can't get it at like the regular Disney parks that we're used to in the US.
Yeah, and the same goes for Universal as well. Like, I kind of see like Universal and Disney kind of go back and forth, and here in terms of their merchandise, like Disney would do something different, and then Universal like, well, we're going to do that too, and then Universal does something, and then Disney's like, well, we're going to do that as well, and it's just like a lot of back and forth, which I'm not complaining. I think competition is good because we end up winning in the end. Like for Universal here, most of the Universal parks in the world have a Harry Potter, like Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So a lot of the merchandise is kind of the same, but here in Japan they have a lot of very Japan centric stuff, like the clear files or the copious amount of keychains for like every single house and every single character, and then also the omiyage, which is very big here, like the tins with the cookies and the chocolates and all this kind of stuff. So there is unique merchandise for these very familiar IPs, like Harry Potter and like even Jaws and E.T. and things like that. They just have sometimes very strange merchandise, which
they get you, man.
I love. I end up buying it anyway.
Well, I find what happens at the Universal Studios Japan, because it happened when I went back in, oh God, I think 2000. Did I go in 16 or 14? I think 16. Yeah, I went in 2016 to USJ, and you have your standard like lands that USJ has, but for some reason they had, and I thought it was limited, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. There was a Monster Hunter portion at Universal Studios Japan at one time. Is that still a thing, or was that like a limited thing?
That was limited. That would have been part of the.
That's what I thought.
They have an event every year called Cool Japan, and that's when they showcase a lot of these really big like anime or video game IPs. So yeah, Monster Hunter is a very popular one. They'll do Godzilla, they'll do Evangelion, Attack on Titan. Actually, next month they're starting Demon Slayer. They're doing a Demon Slayer ride and merchandise and food. They've done Final Fantasy in the past, Resident Evil. Like, they do all these really big IPs that Disney can't do. Like, Disney can't do these, obviously. So I think that's kind of like the nice balance if we want like, you know, Disney, we obviously go to Disneyland. But if we want like these kind of like more Japan-esque, Japan-centric type things, you go to Universal Studios Japan.
But even like Universal Studios, like here, and like we have one in Florida,
Yeah.
and you know they don't do anything like that. It's just their basic standard things. They don't change anything. They don't add anything limited. It's just there, and it's always gonna be there.
Yeah. I think like for Japan, because again, they're very focused on the locals, right? They have to continuously change things to get people to come back. So, you know, every few months there's something new. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Like, I'm gonna go and spend, you know, my $50-$60 just to try this new meal that looks like Demon Slayer. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go and do that because I think it's fun. So I think that's how they keep it like really fresh here.
I never thought of it like that. Now that's intriguing. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, and I have a quick question. You mentioned that Tokyo Disney was not actually owned or operated by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Is Universal owned and operated by Universal Studios, or is it a local company as well?
To my knowledge, they're owned and operated by the same company as the US.
Oh wow, okay.
So like we kind of see like things that they do in the US they're doing over here, but of course they have like the Japanese influence on it. So
right.
Very like I guess different mindsets, like the Disney here versus Universal Studios, like they have like different mindsets. So
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of see that sometimes we're like, oh, okay, this decision they made at Universal, okay, that's a very North American type of decision. Whereas at Disney here, I'm like, oh, that's that's something Japan would think of. Yes.
Wow.
So we have, you know, obviously we've been talking about how the parks tend to cater, at least their merchandising and marketing and whatnot, to a lot of the local environment. But they do have a lot of foreigners that do travel to these theme parks, specifically to Japan for these theme parks sometimes. And you know, not everyone can speak Japanese. You know, are there any challenges that someone without prior knowledge of Japanese, like, is there something that they may face that will make their trip to these theme parks a little bit more difficult or complicated? And if so, like, do you have any advice for those travelers that may need to navigate the language barrier as well as, you know, navigate the park?
So for the most part, if you don't speak any Japanese, you'll be fine at these theme parks. The cast members are very friendly and more than happy to help you. And if things get like really complicated, they'll do their best to find someone that can speak English. But that doesn't always happen. But probably the biggest thing is food when it comes to food, because for Japan, food customization is really not a thing, especially compared to like Canada and the US, where we can go to McDonald's and we can customize everything we want, right? Not so much here. Whenever you order something, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Like you might be able to customize something, but you really have to be really good at Japanese to kind of be able to navigate that. And a lot of times you're just going to be told no. Even if you have an allergy, there's a good chance you're going to be told no and to order something else. Now, of course, there are exceptions, but the general rule is they're not going to customize it. And I've asked people like why this is, and a lot of it has to do with, well, they want everyone to have the same experience, and they also want to keep things efficient, because these theme parks are busy. If there's 50 people behind you and you're trying to customize all this food, you're kind of disrupting the people behind you, because you know Japan's very much the group, right? The whole group mentality. So it kind of like trickles into that a little bit. So food is usually the biggest hurdle for people here, especially if you're vegetarian, vegan, or gluten-free, or have some sort of like dietary restriction. It can be very challenging, especially in the theme parks, just because, again, they cater to the local Japanese, and vegan food is really not that popular here. Like it's gaining popularity. Like you can find places in Tokyo, like the big cities, but Tokyo Disneyland, Disney Sea, you're not going to find vegan food or like food that's going to be labeled as vegan. Like you're going to have to do extra research and stuff. Same with vegetarian options. They were getting better at it, But then the pandemic hit, and then they just got rid of pretty much anything that was vegetarian on their menu, because most of the restaurants had like one thing that was labeled as vegetarian. But then since the parks reopened after being closed, I saw those dishes mysteriously disappear. So I don't know if those are going to come back or not. So I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, do research ahead of time, especially if dietary restrictions, and look up the Japanese words for certain things. Most people you talk to are probably not going to understand the English word, so it's better to have the Japanese word. Just have it like written down on your phone or somewhere, just to help move things along. Always knowing something in the local language helps a lot, even if it's just hello or thank you.
Do the parks have like resorts and hotels that are on site? This is one part I'm not really familiar with in Japan. I know in the US they have like hundreds of feels like hundreds of like hotels you could pick from. But in terms of, is that something that travelers would need to consider too, like where their accommodations are and travel to and from the park?
Yeah, so both Universal and Disney, they have hotels right on site. So Tokyo Disney Resort they're going to have 5. They're going to have 5 official Disney hotels. There's a new one opening up this year. And then they also have other like non-Disney hotels that are right on property as well, which are significantly cheaper. So I always tell people, if you're going to Tokyo Disney, splurge a little bit and stay at one of the hotels on site, because you're going to save so much time getting to and from the parks, because the parks are busy normally and you want to maximize your time there, because you are spending a lot of money to be here. So why not be a 10-minute monorail ride away from the parks as opposed to maybe being an hour away by the train? And same thing with Universal. Universal actually has more hotels on site. I think they have like 10 or 12.
Really?
In like this
Okay.
small little area, but they're all really tall hotels, and there's so many to choose from. You can get them pretty cheap. Like, they're not highly themed like the Disney hotels, but when you go to Universal, we don't really think of like highly themed hotels. I think that's just how it kind of works. But Disney, we kind of think of themed hotels. So yeah, definitely, if your focus is the theme parks, stay a couple of days when you're at the park, at the hotel. So just make your life so much easier.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I vouch for that. It does make it easier. I've stayed at 2 Disney hotels in Tokyo Disneyland, and yeah, it made it a lot easier just because you could go on the loop of the monorail, and it makes it so easy. And then I think it's called Miracosta. It's literally right in Tokyo Disney Sea. Like, so you just walk out and boom, you're there.
That's cool. Okay. Good to know for next time. I just was kind of curious about that. We drove last time we were there, so it was
well, I guess if you were living up north, I guess you would just drive down. It'd be easier.
But even then you had to cut through like parts of Tokyo and all that stuff. And yeah, it's not, much rather stay at a hotel, I think. But
so that was kind of like a question that probably you hear a lot, Chris, from people. And I actively listen to your posts on social media, and because like Instagram stories, which have been great. And so kind of my question next is, like, you probably have a lot of people following you on social media. What are some frequently asked questions you get regarding visiting these theme parks in Japan?
Probably one of the biggest ones is the language. Questions about the language. People are very concerned about how much Japanese should they know. Should they, do they need to be fluent to visit here? A lot of concerns about language. And usually what I tell people is, well, I kind of mentioned it already. You can get by without knowing any Japanese, but it's a good idea to know some basic phrases and words. And that's not just unique to Japan. That's kind of going anywhere where English isn't the first language. Like, knowing some of the language is a benefit, and the locals enjoy that. And it, just shows like general respect as well. Aside from language, hotels is probably one of the biggest things as well. People are always wondering like which the best hotel to stay at, how to choose between the hotels, when to book it, how long should they stay, just a lot of questions regarding hotels. And understandably so, they're not cheap. So you want to make sure you're spending your money in the right place. Like, is it worth $700 to stay at the Miracosta, per night? I get questions like that. Or this hotel's really cheap. Is it cheap for a reason? Like, should I stay here? And so, yeah, just a lot of stuff about the hotels. And then probably the next one is visiting. Like, when is the best time to visit? Again, that's a big decision, right? And Japan is not like places like California where the weather is just kind of the same all year round. It gets cold here in the winter. There's a rainy season. The summers are scorching hot. And so you kind of have to decide, like, okay, do I want to deal with the cold, less crowds, or do I want to go when it's nicer? But because it's nicer, it's going to be busier because everyone wants nice weather. You kind of have to like pick your trade-offs as to when you want to visit. So that's a big one that people ask. And then they also people want to coincide it with traveling through Japan. Like, okay, so they want to do the cherry blossoms. Well, how do I do the cherry blossoms while going to Disney? But cherry blossoms are very popular. Well, that makes Tokyo Disney very busy. So you're going during one of the busiest times. So again, it's that trade-off of like, okay, what's more important to you, right? So that's a big decision that you have to make, and understandably, people want to know everything they can with deciding when to visit.
I'm sure a lot of people had a lot of questions for you in the past, and I'm sure you'll get tons more questions in the future about those things. But speaking of Tokyo Disney, we mentioned in this in this interview several times, there's two distinctive Disney parks. There's Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea. And I don't think people realize or understand that they're really actually separate entities. Like, one ticket goes to one ticket goes to the other. How would you describe these two Disney parks to people? And kind of, because people who love Disney will probably go to both. I would assume I went to both because I love Disney. But what are your favorite things about visiting these two parks? And which park is your favorite out of the two?
So how would I describe the two parks? Well, Tokyo Disneyland is kind of a mix between the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. It has the same castle, Cinderella Castle, and it also has elements from the original Disneyland in California. So when they built the park, they kind of got to pick and choose what they wanted because those two parks already existed. So the Japanese are like, okay, well, we want this element from here, we want this element from there. So you get this, kind of a nice mishmash between the two. I kind of like to call it the best of. They kind of pick the best parts of it and put it here in Japan. And it's very familiar. If you're familiar with Disney, you're going to feel at home at these parks because a lot of things are very familiar. With Tokyo Disney Sea, a lot of people immediately think it's a water park, which it is not. It just has the name sea in it. Land, sea, makes sense. So a lot of it is based around water. Like, there's river canals and stuff that kind of connect the park together, and there's Venetia gondolas you can go on. There's these steamliners that go through the canal, so you can kind of like go through the park. It's like their version of having the railroad circle the park. And it's a park that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's unique in its own right, and I consider it, well, I guess this kind of plays into which is my favorite park. It's Tokyo Disney Sea. Hands down, Tokyo Disney Sea. The theming of that park is phenomenal. Even if you're not a Disney fan, going to this park, you just see the amount of money, first of all, money and talent and love and attention that went into this theme park. Like, it shows. It was money well spent, and I don't think we're going to see another theme park like this in our lifetime. I really don't. So it's one of those things where I think everyone needs to see it, Disney fan or not. It's hard to explain if you've never been. Like once you go, you get it. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now. And my favorite thing about visiting the parks probably is the food. I always go back to the food. With Tokyo Disney Sea, you can have more elegant dining experiences, which feels more grown up. So like Disney Sea is kind of a more grown up feel to it, which is kind of nice. So like going there on dates and stuff like that is really nice, or for special occasions. People get married at these hotels. Like people get married at the Hotel Miracosta. So then if you're in the park and there's a wedding happening, you'll see them come out on the balcony, and people clap and cheer and stuff. And then sometimes they'll have a photo shoot going through the park. Like the bride and the groom will be on the Venetia gondolas. So it's a very different experience. And it's, like I said, it's really hard to just encapsulate everything. You just have to kind of see it for yourself. And it's hard to believe it's in Japan. Like no one thinks of this with Japan. Like you think of like shrines and temples and things like that, not going on a Venetia gondola with a person singing to you in Italian. like it's not something you think of.
Is Disney Sea, were they built at the same time, or is Disney Sea more recently like constructed?
Disney Sea was built in 2001. Well, it opened in 2001.
Opened in 2001. Oh, so they were pretty close when they opened then, right? It was Tokyo Disneyland was
1983, so it was like a long time.
I'm sorry. I was okay. My bad. For some reason, I misunderstood earlier. I thought you said they were open like right after the bubble. Never mind. Ignore me. Yeah. Okay. That would make sense. It's just like you said. I've never been, and it's always one of those ones where I always am like, yeah, I want to go to Tokyo Disney Sea, but I like for example, last time we went with my son, and he was like 3, and we're like, oh, but we never been to Disney World, so we're Disneyland, so we want to take him to like the traditional Disney park. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, but I always hear people say, if you're gonna go to one, do Disney Sea, and that's something I've always kind of regretted. Like I've been to Disneyland twice and Disney Sea 0, and I kind of wish I had balanced it out.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask as well. Would you say more people go to Sea or Tokyo Disney?
If you want to play by pure numbers, because this is something I look into because I'm a geek in that sense. Tokyo Disneyland technically has more visitors per year compared to Disney Sea, but I think it's a capacity thing. Tokyo Disneyland has a lot more space, so more people can fit into the park compared to Disney Sea. For locals, I think it's kind of a mixture. Like a lot of teenagers love to go to Disneyland because it's just like this fun kind of wacky place that they get to take pictures and have fun food and the shows and entertainment. And Disney Sea is just very picturesque and just very Instagram worthy. So I think just from a pure numbers standpoint, more people go to Disneyland, but that's because of the capacity and stuff.
That makes sense.
But that might change because Disney Sea is currently building its biggest expansion ever right now. It's supposed to open in 2023, and they're adding another hotel. So we're going to have 6. That's 6. Yeah. Another hotel that's going to be right in the park. So Disney Sea is going to be the only Disney park in the world that has 2 hotels in its park. And they're adding a Frozen attraction, a Tangled attraction, which is the first in the world, and also 2 Peter Pan attractions. So they're adding more capacity to this park. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of the crowds, because it looks like they're expanding the capacity of Disney Sea itself. It's kind of funny, like talking about crowds. The top 5 most visited theme parks in the world, Disneyland, Disney Sea, Universal Studios Japan, are always in the top 5.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, I did not realize that.
That's crazy.
They're always in the top 5. I think number 1 is like the Magic Kingdom in Florida, and I think followed by Disneyland in California.
Huh.
I think that's what it is. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. And then the next it's always Japan. Japan has 3 in there all the time, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just interesting. They're very popular.
I think that is true because I know me as a fan of Disney, I love Japan. You know, I've been to Tokyo Disneyland, Disney Sea twice already now. And I told my husband, because of your videos, I'm knowledgeable of all this now. I was like, Jonathan, we need to go in 2023. Like, we need to do it in 2023. He's like, but you've already been twice. I'm like, no, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's going to be different. And then I haven't experienced the Beauty and the Beast part in Tokyo Disneyland yet. So I really want to experience that. So yeah, no, definitely want to go when all the new stuff happens.
The one thing I tell people is like a word of caution coming to these theme parks. They're going to ruin you because you can't just visit once. You're going to want to come back. That's how they get you. That's how good they are. You come once, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to come back. And well, look at me. I decided to live here. So, hey.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things 2023 is going to be a big change for Disney Sea, right? But I'm pretty sure over the last year there have already been some big changes. Mm-hmm. The event that shall not be named, I guess we'll call it, has probably forced a lot of changes. So, has it been difficult to visit the parks in the past year and a half?
Extremely difficult, yeah. Disneyland in particular, like I'd be going like 2-3 times a week. Now I'm going once every 2-3 months since things reopened.
Wow.
Just because they reduced the capacity of the parks. I think right now they're at 5,000 people per day. And the tickets go on sale a month ahead of time and they sell out almost instantly. And they only make the tickets available online. And then whenever they go on sale, the website crashes, and it's just like it's not a fun experience trying to get them. So I haven't been going as much as I would like to, but it is what it is. There's not much I can do about it. Like, you know, like everything that's happened in the world, you know, really out of our control.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing, is just not being able to get into the parks easily. Well, for Disney, that is. Universal Studios Japan is easier. Like, you can still kind of show up the day of and get tickets to go in. But it's in Osaka. So, it takes me a good 2.5 hours by the bullet train to get there. But that adds up pretty quickly. It's about a $300 round trip on the bullet train, plus having to pay for hotels and stuff. So it's not something I want to be doing weekly. Right. As much as I would love to, I can't.
Yeah. So when you've gone since the reopenings, besides the I guess, the limited amount of people, what other like noticeable changes were there? And I know you mentioned the food as well. The vegetarian options kind of dropping off the menu. Did you notice like certain rides or attractions were also closed that maybe required you to be close in proximity to other people or things like that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of mostly entertainment, I guess. Like, most of the attractions are open now. When they first reopened last year, not every attraction was open. But now it's changed. Everything's running. But in terms of entertainment, they've really cut back on entertainment. So there's just not a lot of that going on. And also they changed how like the character greeting stuff works. Everything's from a distance now, which is very similar to the other theme parks around the world. And just a lot of stuff. It's also kind of forced both parks, both Universal and Tokyo Disney, to embrace technology more, which I know sounds weird, but Japan is usually seen as a really high-tech country. It can be, but it can also be very stuck in the past. And the theme parks kind of held on to like these paper fast passes and like doing things kind of analog for the longest time. And these changes in the last year has kind of forced their hand to, we have to do these things digitally now. So there's been a big shift towards digital with everything, which I think is better because, most of us at, come from other countries. We're really used to doing everything on our phone, and so it's kind of nice to be able to do that here as well. So that's probably one of the biggest shifts I've seen. And they're still trying to figure it out. It's not perfect yet. Still a lot of things to work out, but hopefully once things are back to, the borders are open, people are able to travel here, it makes things just easier. I hope. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, all of us, for sure. And for me, I've never gone to Disney Sea, so I'm like blown away by all the stuff you're telling me about it. Sharing with all of us about it. I'm like, oh my god, how did I not do that? When I was there. But
I've already marked my 2023 calendar. For
yeah,
Disney
right.
Sea, so.
And like the food, I'm over here like, oh my god, I just can't even imagine. But would you say when the borders do reopen, would you say it's still worth visiting these parks, even though these certain elements have changed?
I think once, if you want to visit right after the borders open, I don't know how it's going to be. I have no idea. It's probably not going to be the best, in my opinion, because I think because the borders have been closed for so long, people are going to have to kind of readjust to everything. Even though the Olympics were just here, that was kind of a bubble in itself. People couldn't really go. People coming over really couldn't go anywhere. They were there for the Olympics, and then that's it. So I think there's going to be a learning curve again with Japan reopening to foreign tourists, because I've seen English support has kind of dropped in a lot of places because they just don't need to, right?
Wow.
And I'm kind of talking about the smaller places, not Disney and stuff like that. They obviously have the money and resources to be able to do that kind of stuff, but just general things around, you just don't see a lot of English stuff as much as there was prior to everything. I would say wait a little bit. That's why I kind of tell people, if you're planning a really big trip to Japan, especially if you're a theme park person, wait till 2023, because that's when all the new stuff at the parks will be done, the big expansion of Disney Sea and stuff. And also there's a Ghibli theme park coming that's supposed to be opening in 2023 as well.
I didn't know that.
Even more reason. There's always something. It's opening near Nagoya.
For those listeners that don't know how we would do this, sometimes we have the interviews before the actual recording that we have with us as the crew. And Chris, thanks for spoiling it.
Oops.
I was gonna drop them. No, you're good. You're good. I'm glad that you were able to see their reaction, because I was gonna drop that on them for the episode when we record. So it's funny to see them react to you making that announcement.
And you said it's going to be near Nagoya?
Yeah,
that kind of area. That area is starting to turn to a theme park space, because there's Nagashima Spa Land. Legoland opened there a few years ago, and next we're going to be seeing the Ghibli theme park. So I think there's going to be this new golden route for theme park people, just kind of going through Japan, go to all the different theme parks.
And I like that idea, because when regrettably some people go to Japan, they stay in one area and don't move around and explore all the different parts. And so, like you said, I'm glad that it's kind of this golden route of theme parks where hey, if you want to go see this, you have to go over here. If you want to see this, you have to go over there. So I'm really excited for that to be a thing now. But speaking of theme parks, fun question for you, Chris, is if you could design any kind of theme park in Japan, what would it be?
I thought about this one for a little bit, and when I came up with my answer, I went and I did some research. I'm like, oh, this kind of exists a little bit already, but I'm gonna use it anyway. I would have a food theme park. All you do, everything, there's just different food from different fantasy worlds, just kind of playing off of Universal Studios Japan. We'll have a section that has food from Final Fantasy, food from Ghibli, food from Demon Slayer, food from Disney movies and stuff, just all in one spot, because theme cafes are a big thing in Japan. I would just love something that was just, there's 20 restaurants in this place and you get to pick something. I think that would be phenomenal. Now, things like that kind of exist. There's like the ramen museum down in Yokohama. So that's kind of a food theme park, people describe it as. So something like that, but just on a grander scale, I think would be awesome. I would love that.
Almost like a bunch of theme cafes in one location.
Yeah.
And like a permanent set, not like a limited time kind of thing.
Yeah, I would love that so much.
That's awesome.
I think you and many people, I'd do that, man.
Yeah, me,
I'd pay
I'm a
some top
foodie.
dollar, yeah, for some Ichiraku ramen from Naruto, you know.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
dude,
exactly.
I'd go bankrupt, you know, like that's amazing.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you for coming on and answering our questions about Japanese theme parks. We had a pleasure talking with you, and we hope that our listeners gained a lot of insight about traveling to Japan now that they've heard about all these theme park options that maybe they haven't discovered before. Would you like to shout out any of your stuff for our listeners so they can go check you out and, discover more about Japan theme parks?
Sure. You can find us, most of our stuff is on our website, tdrexplore.com. That's where we have our free and premium travel guides. We actually have 2 books. We wrote one on Tokyo Disney Resort and also one on Universal Studios Japan. We're working on our next edition for next year, so that's a lot of work that we're putting into that. Also, all over social media like YouTube, TDR Explorer, where we post videos every week, and pretty much every other social platform, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all under the same name. And we also do have a podcast as well called TDR Now, and it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you just type that in, TDR Now will pop up there, and we talk everything theme parks here in Japan. So check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on. It's been so much fun.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast. Today, we discussed Japan's theme parks and what makes them unique. Have you ever been to a Japanese theme park? Which one? And if you haven't, which one would you like to visit now? Share with us on Instagram and Twitter at Krewe Japan Podcast. That's KREWEOFJAPAN Podcast. While you're there, follow and let us know how you're enjoying the podcast. That's it for today. Until next time.